my body was not ready. So back with the Backlog Builder, more Ippo. One season left after this one, but from what I hear, I hear like it's lower, in production value. But this one exceeded all expectations. Before we get to that one, though, I think first was the Mashba versus Kimura special, which kind of like it was good. I liked it better than Champion Road. But my sort of issue with both of them is I feel like at its weakest, if like the battles are good. Especially when Mashba versus Kimura hit the climax, I was like, yes. But they're getting into the match itself, and even parts of the match, I was just like, yeah, okay, But I didn't have that issue with New Challenger, because the build-up into the matches was often really good. But anyway, I did Mashba versus Kimura. I like seeing more of Mashba, and of course Kimura getting some limelight. And it was interesting because seeing Mashba fought Ippo, but he wasn't afraid of Ippo. During the match with Kimura, he was like, oh. And of course Kimura, seeing him just, because he's mostly been like a gag, Aoki in a sense. So not, Aoki, hasn't had anything. And apparently doesn't get anything, compared to this, at least from what I understand. But yeah, I don't know, it was fine. I like the climax. I liked him, having to, because, in fighting Mashba, he's kind of like fighting, an experienced rookie, kind of like what he had to deal with Ippo coming up from the bottom and surpassing him. And now he gets a chance to fight against Mashba, who's similar to Ippo in that he's also a rookie. They both, got their license at the same time. But yeah, it was cool. I guess mostly I want to talk about New Challenger. So one thing I was actually not sure about, because I did know that it shifted from the cell animation to the digital animation. But honestly, Champion Road and not New Challenger, Mashba vs. Kimura, kind of I wasn't sure how the transition to digital would go. Because there's definitely an appeal to both animation styles, I think. Though I'm wondering, I don't know, because I definitely enjoy cell animation just fine, but I don't know, maybe my tastes are more aligned to digital just because that's more of what I've watched and have watched. But seeing, New Challenger, I think it made the transition really well. I don't think anything was lost. The opening is fucking great. It's probably my favorite Ippo opening. It's still able to have, good animation and direction. When fucking, Ricardo, I think during the Date match, he punched, and, they were trying to sell, the weight of that punch, and I was like, oh shit, it didn't even land on anything, and I was, whew. And just in general, there's, lots of good, impactful bouts and stuff, and, ooh, yeah, it was, I was satisfied, very much so. The first bout was, I honestly kind of forgot about it. It's fine, Miata versus Arnie, for him getting his title belt with the really shitty manager guy Arnie started drifting away from his manager while Miata was getting closer to his dad through the boxing and understanding each other better. And I especially like the line about lucky punches, where it's there's no such thing as a lucky punch, because every punch, if someone had the power and energy to throw a punch, then they're still trying. They're still putting in some kind of effort, So even if, it might have struck where it wasn't intended to go or something to that effect, or just struck, when it seemed like it never would, then it's still, it's not quite a lucky punch, because that's how Miata's dad was framing the punch that got him to retire. But, his opponent was still trying, and he retired. So, he couldn't continue on some level. But anyway, as far as the good build-up goes, a great example of that is with Date AG versus Ricardo, because even before we get there, we get, Ippo sparring with Ricardo, which was great, because now we see, okay, what's the difference? And, the part where Ippo does his fucking Dempsey roll, and then Ricardo just, punches him in the middle of the infinity sign, as he's going back and forth, it's God damn! It's great for showing there's even, he sees Miata, who is sparring with Date, and they kind of have this moment of we're strong, but we still have a ways to go before the top, the championship. And anyway, until the last match of the season, Date versus Ricardo was probably the most invested I've been in Ippo. I watched 3 episodes without even updating my anime list, which I don't do. because, there's the openings and endings. So there's like a perfect break point. I'm usually going to check Twitter. Mal's right there. I'm going to update it, most likely. But I just like, I wanted to watch the next match. And it's weird because like after watching it, I was like, damn, that was cool. I'm probably going to talk about it a lot in the Backlog builder. But then I just watched all Talk versus Talk today. So I'm just like, well, like this watching definitely had like I think I mentioned on the Joe Nen show, and the hardest parts about the boxing series, one of them is weight control, and the other is the injuries, because Date just gets fucked up. Because first he punches and loses the bones, like bones in his hand get broken, and it's like and then his jaw gets broken, some of his ribs get broken, like those two in like quick succession, and it's But the match was cool. Ricardo was neat. Like, he's able to have respect for his opponents, which is a major contrast to a later champion. And of course, like, at the end of the day, Date he was this close. Like, if he just hadn't broken his hand and he had the power to do the heartbreak shot, then, he might have had a chance to win. And, like, Ricardo never stopped. Like, he's like, it seemed, Date was all busted and beaten up, and Ricardo's still like, it's boxing. There's always a chance for some kind of an upset. Like, he was still recognizing that, and went into the ring with that in mind. So, I don't know. Like, there's so many powerful, like, boxers in the weight class. Like, Ricardo, Date's retired now, but, Ippo, Miyata, Sendo, Itagaki gets introduced. So, like, apparently, like, I know that, or, like, basically from what I heard, like, I kind of have an idea of what the last match is intended to be. But, like, there's so many other characters involved that, like, seeing it get there could be interesting. Like, I'm definitely going to read the manga. I don't know. I think I'd rather read it at my own pace rather than, like, for the Backlog builder. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to catching up. Because, like, I mean, apparently, yeah, Talk vs. Hawk is still, like, one of the most well-liked matches in the entire series. For good reason. Probably the biggest shock this season, though, was Ippo's match, where, Hammer now, okay. He's bald? Sure. His name is Yamada Naomichi, and I'm like, I paused it for a good few seconds, I was like, what? No. No fucking way. I did not I can't say I expected Garamichi to come back in the way he did, and it was great. Like, yeah, it was a good match. I liked seeing, Ippo as a senior, and Garamichi sort of like, he just wanted to have this one match against Ippo and be recognized and show his senior everything he learned. He was being a bit of an asshole about it because, nerves and just, trying to psych himself up to fight the fucking featherweight champion of Japan, and, his senior, but Ippo's like, damn, he was dangerous, with some more experience, and maybe, he could be a real challenge, and Garamichi's gonna keep boxing, and yeah, it was not the return I was expecting, but it was good, really good. I liked it. So yeah, Itagaki got introduced, and he seems fine so far. Like, he's got his own things going on, so I'm kind of curious as to, like, it's a season of an ongoing story, and this one, like, especially with the way it very much felt like there's more, in the sense where, like, season 1, Ippo, I want to become strong, now he's, Japanese featherweight champion, like that's a pretty decent ending point, all things considered, for a season, but, with Itagaki, he just kind of like, I did like his one match, though, where he fought someone who cheated. And it was kind of interesting to see that brought up, how it was, what the response was, because what Ippo said is basically like, you just have to deal with it in the moment. Like, you can't, because Itagaki got distracted, he's like, ref, what the fuck, and then he lost a match that he probably could have won, but he wasn't, because, like, Ippo's dealt with that shit before, like, with Mashiba, he, hurt his fist, punching Mashiba's elbow, and literally just the match before with Naomichi would use his palm to pry open Ippo's guard and hit him in the solar plexus, and Ippo just had to deal with it. Like, the ref's fault for not noticing, yeah. But I thought did think it was kind of interesting, because in theory you'd want, like, even if the ref doesn't notice it, like, what if they're videotaping the matches? Like, obviously they're not going to stop the match to, like, look over the replay, but some way to sort of hypothetically, penalize a boxer who does too many fouls that the ref doesn't notice in the moment, that would be ideal. I don't know how, if anything's changed regarding that, but it was interesting to see it, because it's just a part of, like, I think Coach even has a line, I think it was with Naomichi, where it's like, I can't even say, that I, or that I wouldn't, if my boxer did it, I wouldn't say anything, because it's just like, it's just part of the cheating it's just accepted as part of boxing, not a good part, but something you have to be able to deal with. Like, Coach never says, like, none of the main characters cheat, obviously, because then they'd be less likable, but they have to deal with it, and they're not gonna, like, throw a fit. They're just gonna win, honorably. They're fighting type, even if they're fighting against fighting dark types. And then we get Brian fucking Hawk. So I was like, he's so perfectly unlikable. I'm amazed, honestly, like, thinking back, because he's just a giant shitbag. And I'm also, the other amazing part is that, so there was, like, when he first says, oh yeah, Japanese women are like delicacies, which is a shitty thing to say, but the way everyone reacted, they were like, like, it was treated like this horrifying thing. And I was just sitting there like, like, what was it, last episode, maybe 2 episodes ago, where Takamura, the guy he's fighting, was groping Aoki's girlfriend and thinking about, is there a way I could join in on this without them noticing that like, basically rape, or attempt, like, he's thinking about it. Probably one of the most yikes things I've seen a pervert character do. And I talked about it before in general, I generally just intolerant of pervert stuff, but there's moments that, I go like, and that one was a little, that's, basically, like, Takamura is, like, so yeah, when the Brian first said that line, I was like, yeah, that's shitty, but oh no, he wants to have consensual sex with women he doesn't care about, how horrible. And then it got worse. And then the things were framed with Takamura that made it was more of a Sanji Absalom thing. And at first I wasn't sure how it was gonna shape up, but it worked out by the end. It was just that initial kind of like, this isn't that bad. Because Takamura, like, that's the thing, is like, overall I do like Ippo a lot. But if I had to single least favorite moments, Takamura has been involved in many of those moments. Like the homophobic jokes, and him being like yeah, he's constantly, like, mocked and shat on for, being just a shitty pervert, like, right after the fucking Hawk fight. But no, I was, at the end of the day, I was glad with how it was framed. Or maybe not glad, like, satisfied is maybe the better, like, it worked out in a way I wasn't sure it was going to. Of course, there's, like, way more going into the fight, but like, yeah, for Brian is, like, he just uses women because he needs them in a different sense because of his violent urges. Like, he's where Takamura can put that aside. Like, he becomes completely focused on the match, and women don't become a thing until immediately after. Of course, like, again, like Sanji versus Absalom, where, like, Sanji there are limits and restraints, even though Sanji and Takamura are both pervert shitheads at times. Is what I'm getting at there. But yeah, it was nice getting, like, there was so much going on with the fight. Like we get more Takamura's family circumstances, and while I wouldn't, familiar themes are there, it's not like we don't see enough of Brian Hawk to contrast them really. But Takamura's family sort of out, especially his dad and older brother, less so his older brother, as we kind of see after the match, but, like, he was kind of outcasted, but during the match, like, there's a line he gives Coach where it's like, I couldn't have asked for a better second. Coach has kind of been the father where his father, like, because we don't see him. He never comes to Takamura. He never say, like, he just, basically disowned him after the rugby stuff and fighting the crowds and being unfit for the family base. So, but, he did find, like, during the match where he's being held up by the others. God, that was so fucking good. Like, there was just so much going on. It like, I guess to sum up, what I thought of in general, it's basically like, it's boxing. In almost like its ideal form, like, because Brian, he's a fighter. He's not a boxer. He just happens to be in a boxing ring and following its rules. Like, his coach admits that, like, his boxing style isn't real boxing. So, like, when he's going wild and crazy, he's just doing these batshit moves that don't make sense. Where when Takamura is, like, going on purely on instinct, he still has this tight, focused, compact fighting style. Like, because that's what I kind of thought was interesting, because, like, boxing, yeah, they're under these specific rules and they're trained in certain ways because it's supposed to be, like, the most all-rounded and efficient fighting style. Like, people aren't trained like Brian Hawk fights. Like, he's unusual, because, like, it's not a good fighting style in the strictest sense. Like, and of course, that's, Hawk comes from street fights. So, like, it says, like, I faced down a gun before. Like, what's a boxer? He's had to deal with that kind of stuff. And his fighting style, is wild because of that reason, because anything goes in a street fight. But boxing does have rules, and the fighting style is for sort of like, it's built around the rules and regulations. Blows below the belt and feet aren't allowed, so their focus is on footwork and mobility, not kicking. Obviously, like that's just a basic explanation of what I'm trying to get at. But Takamura is a boxer first and foremost. The fact that he has to do weight training. Brian is just so naturally talented. He just happens, his build and stuff, he just happens to be junior middle weight without having to do exceptional amounts of training or weight management, where Takamura has to work just to be in this fight. And and it is funny because it's because I've been on a tirade against hard work versus talent lately. And because it's definitely in this fight, but also you had the coach's great line where he says hard work isn't always rewarded, but everyone who is successful works hard. Because even if Hawk's training isn't in boxing, he still has a lot of experience as a champion, which was one thing mentioned, since Takamura had issues. He had to sort of learn how to fight Hawk as it went, because this was his first time against someone comparable to him, and up to his charge through the ranks up till now has mostly been easy, or not easy, but it wasn't super difficult because he was in the earlier match he had his weight training fucked up, and he still won even though he was nowhere near his peak, but because he's just that much better in general than than most of the people he's fighting. So even though, Hawk doesn't do a lot of hard work to maintain his position, he still has a lot of tools in his arsenal. And, generally speaking, it's kind of coming up with the Ippo and the Dempsey rule, where, just generally speaking, it's good to have a bunch of tools in your arsenal. Takamura, boxing is boxing because, and the coach's boxing is ideal because Takamura is now super well-rounded. Not just in, he doesn't just have techniques and stuff. He also has the instinct. That was how he dodged Hawk's last spurt in the last moment. It was said, is that because, he predicted it coming based on, his technical knowledge, or did he dodge it on raw instinct? And, I'd say the answer is both, because, at the end of the day, the best boxer is going, and that's what I don't like about the way hard work versus talent is talked about, because, if you work hard enough, you can do anything. Well, the talented people are going to be working hard, too, realistically speaking. This is obviously, in this case, this is more compared to, Frieza, where they're just, super talented without working as much, but even then, he still spars, Brian still works on some, just not a lot. But realistically, people at the top of these kind of fields are going to be doing a lot of work. So it just makes sense that, so what else is there to, make up the edge? And in this case, it's, Takamura's instinct, his fighting talent. When he snaps and goes fucking wild on raw instinct, that was a little scary. It did the hard work versus talent thing, but it also did, way more. To, I said, where I'd say it's basically the core of boxing, and why boxing, it is fighting, but it's also not just fighting. There was even a part that kind of reminded me of, Harimao from Ashita Joe, where, because, he's even more so a wild animal, and that's what Brian Hawk is called at times, and they're gripped by fear, but, Brian does keep fighting with Harimao. That was the end. And I also like the aspect, not even just the hard work, but specifically what is being worked on, where, Brian, again, going back to the tools, Hawk has all these. Hey, Hawk doesn't have that much. He just has what he's naturally gifted at, and he's never been given any more. Where Takamura, the coach forced him to run a lot, and he forced him to use his left, which aren't what he's good at, but because of that, he had these other tools that he was able to use. And, everyone, when he was falling and he felt the coach's arm on his back, and then he also felt the arms of his juniors, the people who he's surrounded himself by people. He's gotten up these other people in the boxing, and they're all when Aoki does his title match, except for Itagaki, who's obviously very new, but Miyata is also, I think maybe he was crying a little bit because they were at a point, almost everyone was crying because they realized how much Takamura had fought and suffered without, a word of complaint. But they point out Miyata has known Takamura the longest. Basically all of them are in the rankings, and and will have challenged a title whether they won or not at some point. But they're also supporting Takamura, who in a lot of cases got them into it, and that was great. There's a lot of other good moments, but it's just a really good fight. Like I don't know if it's like one of my favorite fights ever. Like bouts, it might be. I just need to reread it first because but it was really fucking good. Like I almost felt deflated talking about Date versus Ricardo earlier because I was like, wow, this is great. This might be my favorite fight in this series. Because I enjoyed it so much and I was super mad. And then Taka versus Hawk happened. Well, even before it, I was like, I've heard this fight hyped up a lot. Maybe I should temper my expectations. But the build up into it was good. Seeing Takamura struggling, like the way they described what it's like to do the weight training, where you're thinking of food, and then you're thinking of liquids, and you just want water. You're just obsessed with water. And well, the part that got to me especially was how they describe how, like, I guess losing muscle and fat and water weight and just in general mass, like it makes your nerve endings more exposed. Like there's less protecting them, and that sounded like so you're just more sensitive and like atop all the emotional irritation and oh god, like it really sold how rough it is. And for Takamura, who, as far as the main cast goes, is, the most unlikable, I would say. But at the same time, it made you, I was rooting for him so much, and I was oh, he's great. He's a garbage sometimes, but he's also Takamura, so it's like, yeah. So yeah, it was, it lived up to the hype, is what I guess I'm trying to say. Because I was a little like, is it really going to be that good? Yes, it was fucking great. And I liked how the season ended off because the new challenger title is so perfect, because every major match involves challengers. Miyata challenging Arnie's belt, Naomichi challenging Ippo's belt. Even right before, you had Kimura challenging Mashima's belt, Date and Ricardo, Takamura Hawk. Every major match was, there was a new challenger. But of course, the way it ended off, where Ippo's going back to the multiple tools thing, Ippo's limited by his Dempsey roll, which is a great hammer. But now people know about it, so people are going to come in expecting it. It's even mentioned that in history, it was this thing that was a big deal, but now it's just a footnote. People know how to deal with it now, or at least at the time, and so few people can do it. It's a gimmick almost. But now, Coach is like, it was awesome. It was an awesome way to end the season, because Coach is like, now we're going to become challenge modern boxing by finding an evolution to the Dempsey roll and making it even stronger. And Takamura says, oh, Ippo switched sides now because he's no longer the defender. He's finally become a challenger because he's finally finding something. He got the baton passed by Date Eiji. He has his promise to fight Miyata professionally, but he's not making many moves for it. He's just he was, for the season, he was basically staying exactly where he was and I'll just deal with the challenges as they come. But now he's got a goal to perfect his weapon. And Ippo's good series. I think I gave the season a 9 over, season 1 I gave an 8. Champion Road I gave a 7, just because the match got good, but I didn't like it as much as even Mashima versus Kimura, which I gave an 8, and Champion Road's at a 9, or not Champion Road, goddamn, New Challenger is at a 9, because it was really good. So yeah, one more season to go if it wins the poll, or maybe I'll be reading comics, or maybe I'll get another patron. I don't know. New videos soon, hopefully, or hopefully it's already come out by the time this is out, because I'm recording this on the 7th. So, good shit.